Delusional disorder, previously called paranoid disorder, is a type of serious mental illness called a psychotic disorder. People who have it can't tell what's real from what is imagined. Delusions are the main symptoms of delusional disorder. They have unshakable beliefs in something that isn't true or based on reality. It doesn't mean the delusion isn't somewhat unreal and is usually based on things that could be real, like the feeling of being followed, someone trying to hurt those around them or themselves, down to thinking people are trying to trick them. These are usually found to be untrue or based on instances that have been extremely exaggerated. Most people with this disorder can function reasonably well. They can socialise and continue as normal as possible. But in some cases, people with delusional disorder might become so preoccupied with their delusions that their lives are disrupted. Severe cases of delusional disorder can be rare, but not unheard of. Pauline Dakin's life was turned upside down from a very young age by her mother. She had become involved with a Reverend Stan Sears, who she met at counselling for her husband's drinking. She left Pauline's father, taking her two young children to another town far away from her father. This didn't happen just once, it happened on more than one occasion, constantly on the move. Pauline and her brother would eventually become completely cut off from their father. They wouldn't see him again for many, many years. As Pauline grew up, she moved out, but was always wondering why her mother and the man, who always moved close by, were constantly moving. One day, when she was older, she was asked by her mother to meet her at a hotel. What followed is rather hard to believe, but from that day on her life became even more confusing. After having to discard her jewellery, she was told by the man, Stan Sears, that her father was once involved with the mafia and had gone against mafia rules. This apparently made her family targets of the mafia, and that's why they were always being moved, so the mafia couldn't track them down. They also told her that her father was now in the weird world prison, and that is why they had to move so many times. They also told her that they were to move to a special town where they could be supervised and protected. They called this place the Weird World. After hearing all these strange stories, including family members being replaced by doubles so the mafia couldn't find them, agents following them but keeping a distance, so thwarting attempted kidnaps on her and attempted poisonings. They were just a few of the things that she was told. When she left them, they wanted to place a transmitter on her car so the good guys could keep their eye on her. Pauline began to piece together unusual occurrences she had experienced with her mother when she was young, like throwing food away and the constant home moves. This would unfortunately send her spiralling into a world of paranoia herself, always looking over her shoulder for fear of being followed or poisoned. Over time, she became more disturbed and decided she couldn't live like that anymore. She eventually gave up her home and left her boyfriend to move with her mother and Stan to Weird World, where she was told she would be protected and made secure. After finding a house and job, she thought she was happy living in this weird world. Her mother and her would receive secret letters from her father, who she was told was in a secret prison in the world. Pauline married and told her husband about their secret. But Pauline had always had these niggling little doubts about these stories. But she loved her mum, and she tried to believe her. But her doubts became stronger. And so, after 5 years of wondering if she was safe, she realised she had had enough and decided to make up a story and see what happens. She called her mother and told her house had been burgled. But she didn't know what to do, because she'd always been told not to get in touch with the police, as they didn't really trust them. She waited. Later that day, she was informed by Stan that 2 men had been caught and they'd been following her. She was finally convinced that it was all lies. She was left angry, confused, and saddened. How could her mother let this happen? After confronting her mother, she realised her mother truly believed all that Stan had told her. Her mother had lived this life for years. She had had a difficult life leading up to this and was vulnerable to Stan. He was, after all, a gentle, caring man, and he did help her mother. But for Pauline and her brother, she felt he had hijacked their lives when they were just small children, and she found it hard to forgive him. She did eventually sever all contact with her mother and Stan. Years later, after Stan had passed, she renewed her relationship with her mother, but they weren't as close. Her mother passed away at Pauline's home, not realising she had been living in a folie à deux, a shared delusion. Wanting to try and understand why Stan did all of those things, she spent time looking into different conditions, and after talking to reputable Harvard doctors, they agreed the term delusional disorder would definitely apply to Stan Sears.